root crown disease, we do not know how to fix it. It's not like a lot of things that we've learned to fix with humans. We have not learned to run out off these funguses that attract the base of trees. So you do not change that level at the tree. Now, if you want to plant some things around your tree, you move away from that root crown. Oh, get out there, you know, a foot or two at least. Because what some people are doing, and I think it's okay, they'll get away from their root crown, they'll build them a little border, let's say 3 or 4 feet from the trunk of the tree, and build them another little container and put the soil in there and plant out there. That's way better practice. That's kind of like a tree well. You're keeping the original grade around the trunk of the tree. And that's really important. In a construction scenario, if you've got to change the grade around trees, at least construct something that you don't change the grade around the trunk of the tree. You're generally going to be in pretty good shape if that's how you do it. Then the woodier the plant that you're wanting to plant around the tree generally means the bigger the hole. If you're just planting in the soil level where the root system is, you go away from the tree, you start digging your hole. If you run into a really big tree root, you just move over a little. Make yourself a little room to plant whatever you want to plant. So the more woody the things, you have to be a little more careful. Oh, you know, the more flowery the things, the more annual the things, you know, you don't have to be as careful, but you do have to get them out away from the trunk. See, I think that building up the soil, even if you're not doing it for the tree, you're doing it for something else you're planting under the tree, and you've got to water these things that you're planting under the tree. These things are beneficial to the tree. They're more beneficial than if you weren't putting good soil out there and you weren't watering. That's how I look at that situation. You have to be a little careful, but it's very doable. Okay, where are we? Yes, ma'am.
How can I remove some of that grass without hurting my tree's root system?
Well, the removing of the grass, it's a lot easier to remove St. Augustine, for example, than Bermuda grass. Bermuda grass is, you know, next to impossible. A lot of people just cover it up and start working with it, but you just, you know, you water, and it's what I call teasing it out. You get in there and you sort of, you know, work on it and tease it out of the soil. You just kind of pull it out all along, and sometimes it ends up being a huge amount of work. It just, you know, I don't want to mislead anybody about that.
But I mean, I'm not going to have to go so deep that I'm going to puncture the root system of the tree, am I?
Well, you're very capable of doing it, because you all, what I'm trying to get to, and here will help us right where we are, is this funny little diagram right here. I think it's the next one on your handout. So tree roots go out, they don't go down. And as they go out, you know, we have our big buttresses we've been talking about. That's where the big roots come off of the tree. And every tree will have a different number. You know, some trees have 1. Some cedar elms will have, you know, 15 coming off the base of the tree. Those big roots, there's about 5 feet from the trunk, those big roots really funnel down. Zone of rapid taper, we call that, into, you know, maybe a 2-inch root out not very far from the tree. Well, that 2-inch root is getting a little smaller as it goes out, a little smaller as it goes out, and off of it are branching, you know, other woody roots, filling in, you know, the whole root system. That's sort of like a, you know, a network or a web of roots out there. So those are the woody roots. They're 3 inches under the soil, 2.5 inches under the soil. Off of those woody roots pops up what we call a root spur. It'll be, the size of this pin or a little bit smaller. That's 3 inches under the soil. It'll pop up. It grows about this much, not very much off of those woody roots, and off of it becomes what we call the microscopic root fans. Grows off of that root spur. And these are roots that it hasn't been 15 years ago, we didn't even know these roots existed. These are roots that you cannot see with your eye. The little fine feeder roots that we can see, that's the smallest ones we can see. And it's very important to learn to start recognizing those in the soil. You can really read a lot about the health of your tree simply by digging under the soil in the middle of your branch system and seeing, you know, whether there's a lot of fine feeder roots there or not. But those fine feeder roots, off of those pop these little root fans that we're talking about. In places like Houston, for example, where, you know, generally pretty good rainfall, generally pretty good soil, these root fans will fill in, and you know, in the springtime, good growing season, they'll fill in all the spaces under the tree so that right at the surface, like you dig through your grass with your foot, you're touching a microscopic tree root. They will be completely covering the ground under the tree and beyond the branches. That is in a really good, ideal situation. In our situation in Central Texas, what happens is that in 2007, which rained more than some trees liked even, so it wasn't good for all trees. Spanish oaks didn't like it, for example. But the root systems would have filled in and been really happy. The trees would have been able to get nutrients anywhere under the tree they needed to, because their root systems would have been totally covering under the tree. As we get drier or hotter, the root systems start retracting. So the root fans are the first thing to go. Just die back to the root spur. And then, you know, the woody roots start contracting toward the tree. One of the things that tree scientists have learned in the last few years that we didn't know a few years ago was that trees will drop whole woody roots out in the soil, just like they drop limbs in the top of the crown. Just leave them out in the soil. Just let go of them. And actually, to me, I think that in the long run, that's probably really good for the soil. It's organic matter. It's a big root out there. I think that other roots then use that as a channel, especially in compacted soils like ours. If you had the choice, and of course, you know, we're talking about a different kind of intelligence, but if you had a choice of, if you're a little tree root, of going into caliche, you know, over here, or going into something a little better, you know, where are you going to go? Well, you're going to go where you get some benefit. As we get into the kind of heat and drought that we're into now, our trees' root systems will regularly contract way back to near the trunk, so that there will not be a lot of active roots out there working. Now, if you see an area, or if you yourself, or where I live, I've been taking care of the soil, I haven't let it get very dry, trees look pretty darn good, those root systems are still out there. You know, a lot of root fans working, root system is still full and happy. That's the preventative medicine of tree care. It's keeping your trees healthy, happy, and vigorous. They will not get sick if you keep them healthy, happy, and vigorous. Even in weather like this. Now, you know, if it gets worse, you know, we'll talk about it again. But, you know, I can see it getting bad enough that some of this we have to, you know, tweak a little bit. But as it is right now, the kind of tree care we're talking about just works beautifully. And another really important thing, and I meant to say this really near the beginning, is that tree care, you know, is totally natural and organic. If you want to go green, if you want to go organic, if you want to get, you know, off the chemicals, concentrate on your trees. Because with very few exceptions, oak wilt being really, in my opinion, maybe the only exception, you just do not need, you know, any of those products that people are selling, you know, for trees. Insects are rarely a real problem on trees. Tree diseases, you know, really come in secondary tree diseases, which means if your tree is healthy and happy, you won't get the secondary tree diseases. Secondary tree diseases are like this hypoxylon that only jumps on trees that are dying already. Then our primary tree diseases like oak wilt, you know, it's a subject we're not going to cover today, but, you know, there's really not a whole lot we can do about it. Yes.
You may not want to answer this then. Unfortunately, I won't say which county cut down 32 oaks of mine and 13 cedars. This just happened about 5 weeks ago because it was on their easement, but they didn't need to do it. It was a mistake. And they didn't paint them. What do I do now? Is it too late to make sure they don't get oak wilt? I mean, the branches that they cut, and then they left all these stumps. So what do I do? Because I got over 1,000 live oak stumps.
Well, as far as oak wilt is concerned, you know, our rule is don't prune oaks susceptible to oak wilt from February 1st to June 1st. So if the work was done after June 1st, it's probably safe from oak wilt.
Oh, and then all the stumps and everything is fine.
Well, and then pruning cuts are only susceptible